first off, thanks for chatting, and thank you even more for creating the best platformer since probably the original Mega Man X, in my opinion.
Oh wow! I guess you're welcome.
I'm a Mega Man X fan over the original, so
yeah,
that's high praise for me. It's hard to ignore the sudden rediscovery of the retro format in the industry recently. In an era of overblown scale-over gameplay, first-person shooters, and whatnot, why do you think people are gravitating to games like Shovel Knight?
I think Shovel Knight's just inherently accessible, just in the actual moment to moment. You can just pick it up, you can press the buttons, and the character is immediately responsive.
Like, it's easy to understand.
Exactly.
It's like you can pick it up and play it. When you start it, there's not there's not an enormous amount of time before you get to actually get into the real gameplay. There aren't a ton of tutorials and things to kind of like stop you from enjoying yourself before you even get started.
Yeah, that's Sean, by the way.
Yeah, I am Sean.
Nice to meet you. There's only 2 attacks. I mean, this is a harken back to the old days of you can figure it out, in about 10 seconds. Simple question though, but who came up with the kooky concept of a knight with a shovel?
That kind of came about as a group discussion. Actually, we were talking about at lunch what games we liked from what we can make in an 8-bit style, and what games that really inspired us as kids. And Zelda 2 came up, and it's that down thrust from Zelda 2. That you get that attack later in the game that lets you bounce on enemies and dig through blocks, and it's really satisfying. Downward stab maneuver, and it's combat focused. And so the idea started as a discussion point of like, can we make a whole game based on that one mechanic? And as a result, we were thinking about like, okay, if you're stabbing on enemies, or you're bouncing on enemies' heads, and you're maybe you'll be digging through blocks, and you're doing that most of the time. That doesn't really fit a shovel, a sword. So like, what else could we make that? And so like, based on the discussion, it kind of like went humorously towards a shovel, and we all laughed and I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I mean, like, when that's so much of what making a game is, especially like a classic game, is the player has to be able to intuit everything, right? So the game has to be so intuitive, and so having a shovel as your weapon really makes it, like, it helps the player, like it helps it make sense for the player, because you can think to yourself, oh, okay, and jump, I can shovel, I can jump and shovel, I can do a down thrust, and like, that's about it. And so it's like, you only have those 4 moves, and so now that you're thinking about those, it's like, well, where in the world can I use them all? Like, what, like, you're already beginning to extrapolate where those maneuvers can be used, even if you encounter a brand new item. So it's like, as opposed to like us teaching you.
Right.
Well, you guys really nailed every aspect of the retro experience I felt. And, Shovel Knight, it gave me that sweet sense of nostalgia, but while giving me a new experience at the same time. And there's obvious nods to other franchises. I mean, everybody's talked about it, but it's still undoubtedly fresh. In particular, you perfected the difficulty, something a lot of retro games couldn't even do. Was it a conscious effort while paying homage to an era to also improve in areas like this where a lot of older games weren't so balanced?
Yeah, the difficulty has been something that has been going back and forth, the entire production of the game. It's hard to really balance a game without having other people play it. And so we had people come into the office, and we had Saturday play sessions where we'd have kids play it. We'd have people that don't necessarily play games, relatives, good friends. They come in and give their feedback. But the difficulty thing is hard, because even when you're just making a game that's not necessarily a retro game, when you're just making a game outright, you become the expert at that game just because you were playing it all the time, and you're constantly thinking about the mechanics and how to utilize them. So you are basically set up to be the hard mode of the game, and so it's hard to bring it back and make it something that anybody can play. So yeah, difficulty was definitely something that came up, and we were worried about even up to launch. And as a result, people have said the game is too easy, and also we've heard that the game is way too hard, and some people think that the difficulty is just right. So I'm not sure if we we did okay, but I think we're happy with where it landed.
See, for me, I felt like it gradually increased just right.
Right.
And I think it was the point I want to say it was Spectre Night where I started kind of losing my shit, old school style, a little bit. But that was the perfect point, and the only reason that I was losing was it was all my fault. It wasn't because of the game mechanics. It was just, all right, well, I need to play better, because it's really well balanced. So I didn't exactly lose my shit, as I was saying. So I thought it was perfect. Minami Matsume, I hope I'm saying her name right. She did a couple of tracks on Shovel Knight. Now, you guys must have fanboyed pretty hard getting her on board. Was that tough to accomplish?
It was pretty much out of the blue that it even happened. We were contacted, when the Kickstarter began. We didn't have any idea that Minami would be involved, or even that she was like active and working on the things. We just got an email out of the blue, and when we looked at it, we all thought it was totally fake. We're like, this is BS. Like, this can't really be a real thing.
Yeah, there's no way that Minami Matsume is wanting to make stuff for us.
At what point during the success of the crowdfunding was it that she reached out? Was it already established and well buzzed about?
No, we did PAX East in the middle of our Kickstarter campaign. So it's like the campaign had been going for a week or whatever, and then PAX happened. So I remember going to PAX and they sent over a Minami song that she had written recently as a sample, and that was happening right during PAX. So it's like we hadn't even had a confirmation of it necessarily or anything.
Yeah, we hadn't funded. I think there was still. I think we left PAX. When we got back home, we were still under our goal. Like halfway through PAX, I think we hit 50,000. So it was still a risky thing for her to get on board at that time, which I think helped lend to the sincerity of it.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of the crowdfunding, it excelled 400 times past your goal. Was there ever a moment of, oh wow, we better not screw this up, or did you maintain that certain confidence when the heat was on, so to say?
I would say we had confidence in our ability to make a good game. That was never really a question. It was more just like, how are the logistics going to work? How are we going to be able to get the rewards out? And also, is the game that we're going to make meet the expectations of everyone? Because their expectations have become really varied.
Yeah.
When players look at Shovel Knight, I think they kind of see whatever nostalgia they're familiar with sometimes. So it's like, if you love Mega Man, then you're like, oh my gosh, it's just like Mega Man. Or if you played what's that one game? Yeah, what's that one game that everyone's like, oh, it's just like this.
Was it Fex Energy?
It's like Monster World or something it's like Monster World 4 or something.
Monster World in general has a down thrust and pushing combat.
Right.
Monster World 4 has a very prominent down thrust mechanic.
Okay.
System.
Okay. That's even for sale on PSN, huh? It's that green hair person is on the front.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I played that 2 years ago. I actually had a little bit of it in mind while making Shovel Knight.
Okay. Yeah, because that one, I've never even, I had played that for 5 minutes, and people are like, oh my gosh, it's just like Monster World 4.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, cool.
Wonder Boy 2 is basically all the super fun.
Okay, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
It has an iron knuckle and it kind of
right.
So it's
So yeah, we come from a long line of Zelda 2 ripoffs.
And it's pretty cool to get to see Zelda 2 getting a little love from somebody, because I know in my circles, man, it's just hated, but absolutely hated. But what is your opinion on bigger companies using crowdfunding? Without giving it much thought, it could instantly sound like a bad thing, it being sort of against the mission of something like Kickstarter. But at the same time, what if that's what it took for us to finally get a new Mega Man, for example? It kind of seems divided, but what are your thoughts?
Big companies using crowdfunding, I don't know. It seems like just in terms of it's a good opportunity for creators to connect with their audience, and so that's sort of how I've always seen Kickstarter. But it's
good.
Well, I'm just thinking it's probably right for manipulation if a big company is just going to be using it that way. But I don't know. I don't think that cynically about it. But maybe that's just me.
What I would say is the amount of money that you get from Kickstarter is not enough for a big company to care. Like
Yeah.
it's a game that costs like if they crowdfunded a Mega Man, like they could probably cover the cost of development, like maybe.
Mhm.
But
But not
maybe not.
advertising, not distribution,
Yeah.
not everything else.
Yeah, like if they were gonna do a big game, the budget that they would have to ask for on Kickstarter would like make everyone not even care, I would imagine.
Yeah, you can't even do like the Watch Dogs or like that's just impossible.
Right.
Like, you can't ask for $30 million, let alone 100 or whatever.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it would be maybe interesting to see. Like we saw, did you see like the Shaq Fu like making a new Shaq?
I saw that and I threw up a little bit. Yeah.
That seems to me like the most like exploitative thing I've seen so far. It's like, hey, this is Shaq. We had like the Shaq brand is enormous. Shaq Fu is a thing you don't care about. We just hired a big CG company to like make a trailer, and we have a bunch of we have a bunch of rewards, and it's already all plugged into our marketing and licensing plans because it's Shaq, and like Shaq already knows everyone. Who's everyone? All the rewards are priced at just the point where it's like enough where it's like little Billy has to empty out every last penny in his shoe to get the thing that he really wants, and like there's no proof whatsoever that the game is going to be up to any level of quality at all. Like there's not even any evidence. So I would say, and it was successful. So I would say if that became the standard, then that I might be like a little disappointed.
Did reach its goals?
Say what?
Did that reach its goals? I wasn't up to date past the initial announcement.
Yes, it did reach the goal. So, things like that it's like that one seemed a little bit cynical to me, but maybe I'm just reading into it. I mean, the other thing is they only made $500,000, and that's not nearly enough to make a 3D downloadable game like that. So, yeah, I don't know.
That's ridiculous.
It seems interesting. Like a big company would definitely have the ability to ship out all the physical rewards and stuff, right? Like if they did a Kickstarter, like if I did a Mega Man Kickstarter, if I backed it, I would totally be confident that they would send me my T-shirt when they said they would, right? And that kind of thing. I don't have that level of confidence with just like some, like us, like the Yacht Club off the street. So yeah, I don't know. Well, it's it'll be interesting to see kind of how it all rolls out, because I think that bigger companies may end up going to Kickstarter if they think that they can get funded for a project that otherwise they wouldn't go for, like a Mega Man or
It's been happening more and more in the film world too, not just video games, and I'm just starting to wonder if it's going to become the overall norm, and if it could overall maybe even damage it, like the actual format later on. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It seems like the more companies are using crowdfunding like to do good things, then the more successful it'll be. And like that all just seems like a good thing to me.
Yeah, overall, it's pretty positive.
Well, even before Shovel Knight, it was everywhere, and I personally had never given anything to anything before, but Shovel Knight has totally changed my outlook on that. No, and that's honest. That's not just me, talking up. It really has, because you guys delivered. I gave to Shovel Knight, and now it's like, well, I'm going to have an open mind about it all around now. So, I guess as long as people are legitimate in their cause,
Right.
Yeah, and with more success stories like that, it'll generate more positive energy, and more people will be, making games with the confidence and the sincerity to make a game that actually gets funded and does well.
Yeah, and it also makes the audience more savvy. Also, like every new Kickstarter that happens, I think the general gaming public maybe learns a little bit more about the development process and about who they can trust, and what kinds of things are really good for crowdfunding and all that.
Mm-hmm. Now, timeless games like this and Nintendo, they go together naturally, it would seem. And I can't imagine a better home for it. But are there plans for porting it out to Sony or Microsoft? Or I believe it's on PC and Steam and all that, maybe Apple.
We want to be on any platform that makes sense for the gameplay, makes sense for us as a team. When we decided to go into Nintendo, it was more just like what our team could do at the time. So we're a pretty small team. There's only a couple programmers, and we just wanted to focus on a very focused launch for our release. But we'd like to be on a bunch of other ones. We have a huge fondness for like I want to see it on the Vita OLED screen. That looks really nice. There's also just big opportunities everywhere else. So yeah, everything that we're doing is hopefully moving us to other platforms. As far as like Apple, I don't know if we can figure out a way to get the controller to work right. Maybe, but
yeah, I mean, an iOS version seems pretty out of the question.
Yeah, unless the iPhone 6 is just a controller that has real controls.
Yeah, when they put a D-pad and buttons on the iPhone, then we'll support it. And as far as the other ones go, I mean, I think another thing to take into consideration is like the cool features that were on the Nintendo platforms, Street Pass and the Miiverse stuff. It's like if we were to bring Shovel Knight to another platform, we would probably want to do something cool with it. So we'd have to take that into consideration also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit about the add-on content that's coming via stretch goals that were met. I heard about the gender swap. I heard about battle modes.
Yeah. And then in addition to those, there's challenge mode, which is kind of a little bit undefined at this point, but we pitched it as a series of difficult little bite-sized levels. So it's like there will be 50 levels, and each one is only a couple of screens long, and it's just some like insanely difficult thing that you need to do, or a very precise little thing, and you could maybe run it for time and something like that. But I kind of want to do something a little bit different with challenge mode, but that's the idea for challenge mode as it stands.
It sounds like sort of like the NES Remix approach. The in the stages, yeah,
something like that. Right.
So, and the gender swap, is that basically as simple as it sounds? Are we just going to turn everybody into females and?
Yep.
Yeah, basically
change the personal pronouns, and then that's kind of it. We were thinking we could have like a big screen of everyone, and there's like a little male or female symbol next to them, and then you could just switch it and just like randomize it and whatever. So it's just like, yeah, whatever. There's boy and girl versions of everyone. And then we have more campaigns. So like the Shovel Knight campaign is, that's like the main adventure, but we also have 3 other campaigns coming along where there are different playable characters that you'll have a different story, and there'll be different mobility and play style and everything. So it's like you're going to play as the Order of No Quarter members.
Well, yeah, 3 of them.
Yeah, so you've got King Knight, Spectre Knight, and Plague Knight are all going to appear as playables. And so their story will be like a little bit different. Maybe there will be a unique boss or like a unique encounter or like a level or something for each of them. And then like some dialogue will change, like I mentioned, like in the village, it'll be like a remix. It'll be like 95% the same as the regular Shovel Knight campaign, but like you're going to be playing it in a different way, and things are going to be a little bit different. And so hopefully after you played through the regular Shovel Knight campaign a million times and you're sick of it, you can go and try it as Spectre Knight, and it's like, whoa, this is like so much harder and it's so different. Or as King Knight, and it's like, oh, this is so funny and like in another unique way.
Yeah, when most of the gameplay is based around the mobility of the character, switching that up switches up the whole game's feel. So hopefully it'll feel like totally different experiences with each character.
Absolutely. Do you guys already have the battle mode already fleshed out, how that's going to work? If so, can you talk about that?
Not really. That one's still up in the air, just like all the other ones. Like we're right now just focusing on getting like our European release out and our localization and some patches for some bugs that have come up.
And we mentioned Apple. Like we are planning on supporting Mac and Linux. Like that's our stretch goal. So that's coming down the pipe. There's we have some things logistically that we need to deal with just right now from the perspective of like localization, getting out our physical goods, coming out in all territories, those types of things also.
Yeah, and then once all that's settled, we'll be moving on to the actual pre-production of designing those different stretch goals. And battle mode is actually slated for later, so we're not totally sure what the specifics are for that one. But
that'll probably be the last update that we do. Will have battle mode included in it. And we've described it. It's like the least complicated way you could imagine it is it's like Mario Brothers, like the original, where you're, where it's Mario and Luigi both on a single screen that doesn't scroll.
Yeah. And the pipes and the fireballs and the crab enemies.
Well, I miss, and I don't know if you guys are going for local or if you're going for online as well, but I miss those days. I mean, you mentioned Mario Brothers. You guys remember how they included a version of Mario Brothers with Mario 3, right?
Yeah,
Sure, yeah.
Well,
I used, as simple as that is, I used to play that for hours and hours on end with like my kid brothers and stuff like that, and
Yep.
like the original Mario Kart. You know, I miss those simple, you know, just play with your friends and versus games that
Yeah.
you would do on the weekends. I mean, I honestly have not jumped on board with the whole online thing. I don't. It's not my thing. I mean, GoldenEye was probably the last wave of that. Well, no, Halo, I forgot, but
Right.
yeah. So hopefully you guys are going to tackle it like that and get us addicted to some local play like that.
Yeah, that's the plan. It's just to be local co-op. It's to be set maybe as simple as Mario Brothers, but not as complex as Smash Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And just to have the whole Order of No Quarter and all the cool characters from the game playable, just in something like simple and fun and understandable. Hopefully, the same way that we kind of tried to apply those principles to the full game.
Now, I know I can't be the first person to ask, but given the extreme success of Shovel Knight and the universal praise and all that, with the add-on content out of the way later on, is a sequel a no-brainer, or is that too early to talk about?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of Shovel Knight still to make.
Yeah, it's hard to say how we'll feel in a year or whatever. You know, there's always the possibility of doing like a Shovel Knight 2 that's just the same engine, looks the same, but just new levels. We talked about in the past, like a Shovel Knight, like a Super Shovel Knight where it's like 16-bit, or even like a Shovel Knight 64 where it's, a 3D platformer. And those have been all pretty joking, jokes at that point. But as you remember, like, Shovel Knight came about as a conversation that was kind of jokey. So everything right now is just like a whim or a fanciful idea, but eventually one of those will take the team and propel us for another year and a half of development.
I mean, like, I desperately want to do a 3D Shovel Knight game, but I don't know how it would work.
Yeah, it might turn out that we try something that starts as the 3D platformer and just becomes something else totally.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have whatever we do, we'll develop it around the mechanics. Yeah. So it's like, the way that Mario 64 is an evolution of Super Mario, or even like Super Mario World, right? It's like in Super Mario World, you could do a ton of stuff as Mario. Like you could do a spin jump, you could pick things up, you could throw them forward, you could throw them up. Like you had it was just like an enormous amount of actions available to you. And like they did the same thing with Mario 64. Like instead of Mario just having a couple things you could do like 30 things, right? You could duck, you could do a long jump, you could duck and then jump without moving, and you do a backflip. You could be running full tilt and turn the other direction and do a side flip. When you're standing, you punch. When you hold duck and you punch, you do a sweep. Like it's a cluster, right? When you're jumping straight up and you press attack, you kick. When you're moving at a fast rate and you attack, you dive. And if you're rising on your dive and if you're falling on your dive, it feels totally different. God, Mario 64 is so awesome.
Yeah, you're just making me want to play it.
But like the the complexity of that control, it's like it's so far from Mario, like from just regular Super Mario.
It's a whole evolution of its own identity. So
it's like, what would Shovel Knight be? I wouldn't want to just rip off Mario. Like I wouldn't want to. Like here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to do. Okay, guys, like we're gonna make Shovel Knight 64. So let's look at like Banjo-Kazooie, like Mario 64 and Mario Galaxy, like and my other 3 favorite 3D platformers, and then like we'll take the best ideas from those and make a new one.
Right.
Like I really think it would be cool to try and think like maybe outside of those tropes a little bit to figure out how to make Shovel Knight, like the Shovel Knight gameplay, really work in 3D, or like for there to be a 3D version of that would make sense. But what is that like? Like I don't know. That's like I have no idea.
I think everybody ripped off Mario 64 though on that console. I think it was just it set the benchmark, and it's like but
yeah.
Speaking of these classic franchises, I have a string of just sort of fun questions. I know you guys are probably used to this kind of thing, but I've read that you guys, the two of you, were massive fans of Link to the Past, which for me is the gold standard, flat out. Now, if you could have a chance to put your stamp on any classic franchise, what would it be? Just total fanboy stuff.
Oh, that's a good question. I think Zelda would be good. Just like
Metroid.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Those are both like really really fun games, and it'd be cool to do like a Zelda that really focuses on the item combinations more. And we just kind of talked about that in the past.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about what kind of games we want to make of franchises, if we could do whatever the hell we
Are
want.
you going to say
It's time to take Ice Climbers to the next level.
Ice Climbers?
Ice Climbers
I
to the
thought
next
you were gonna say
level,
Snake Rattle.
Right, they've been jumping up like, line by line. They've been rising.
You know, and I know you guys were really busy all last year when it came out. Or was that this year? No, it was late last year. But what did you guys think if you were able to play it, A Link Between Worlds?
Oh yeah, we love that.
We loved it. And when
I would say, even during the worst of crunch times, we all made time for A Link Between Worlds.
Yeah.
Well, and also when we were like Link Between Worlds hit right when we were balancing all of our money mechanics. It was like, and so it came out and we're like, oh my god, this is incredible. Like we had just been talking about how it's like, look, you guys, rupees are those are the gold standard of terrible. Like we don't want Shovel Knight money to feel like rupees,
Right.
because like rupees are the worst, right? You open a chest and you're full and you can't get them. Every time you pick some up, it gives you like a 5-line dialogue describing why. And there's nothing actually useful or valuable to buy with the rupees. But then it's like Link Between Worlds came out, and it was completely amazing. The rupees made so much sense. Like they were it was really good. The money made that game great. And so I don't know. Like I don't think there's anything that we lifted from it other than just like the general level of quality, and maybe understanding that the money is something that it's like if you uncap it, then it makes it a little bit more fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I heard somebody mention the whole idea about making time for it even at crunch time. It's funny because that's the exact same way I was, and when it came out, I just had to play it, but I kind of forgot that games could be like that because they really did capture. It's not that long, really. It's
Right.
It's hard for me to say if it's just as long as the original Link to the Past, just because Link to the Past I've played probably more than any game in my life, so I can bust through it in just a handful of hours now. So it's really hard for me to compare, but I don't think it's really any longer than that game. So I keep thinking, in this day and age, there's a lot of games I don't play just because I know I don't have time, because we're all about scale these days with a lot of things. And when I played it, I was just am amazed that I could just turn it on for, if all I had was an hour or two a night, I could get through it in a week or whatever. And it was really cool. So I miss that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it really felt like a great game. Like my hand wasn't being held. Like I didn't have to deal with BS. It was just like, yeah,
It was fun.
yeah, it was a fun. It was a fun game.
It was like a panic moment for us too, I think, because it was like we were like with Shovel Knight, it felt like we were trying to like fix a lot of broken things
Right. Yes.
into themselves. And
Yes.
they're like, oh no, not like
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
They fixed it first.
They fixed their own game. I don't know. Yeah. Totally.
Simple question. Simple question. Mario 3 or Mario World? Men from the boys right here.
I don't know.
Mario 3.
Yeah.
Just from which one would I like to go back and play right now?
Really?
Mario World has like a lot of things that I don't want to deal with, but Mario is a good fun.
You know, and I wasn't expecting any of you guys to be on my side on that. I mean, everybody loves Mario 3. I just think, I understand Mario 3 was like the benchmark, but Mario World was the perfecter. I don't know.
You say Mario World?
I say Mario World all day long.
Mario World is like my heart game.
Right.
Like I think Mario 3 is a better game, and like what it's more fun to go back to. But like if I could spend the rest of my life flying with the cape, I would be happy.
Yeah.
So I have one for Mario World.
Like
Yeah.
Super Mario World has such an amazingly like large array of mechanics, and it's like every stage has like so many secrets, and there's like so much stuff going on, and there's like the switch block palaces, there are alternate paths everywhere, there's like whole levels and whole sections of stuff that you can miss, and there's a ton of nuance.
Mario World feels like magical in a way that Mario 3 doesn't.
Right, but I think
Like,
Mario 3
in terms of like strict gameplay and like surprise.
Well, I also think that the theming of the worlds of Mario 3 makes it way stronger than Mario World.
Right.
Because I think Mario World, I was always so surprised. I was like, oh man, I'm just going through like a normal island, You know, it's like you start on an island and then you just go into a cave and then you go to a cliff and then you go to the ghost area, but it's just like a forest, and then you go to like a desert, or like, I mean, they call it the chocolate mountain, but it just looks like mud as far as I'm concerned. You know? It's not like they're like ice cream cones or anything, like, you know, upside down ice cream cones stuck in the mountains. So I don't know. I thought Mario
was too grounded.
Yeah, it was like, it wasn't fanciful enough.
That may have been the point,
like,
but.
Yeah. I mean, that probably was. It's like this is the story of Super Mario when he goes to Dinosaur Land and meets Yoshi.
Yep.
You know.
Well, agree to disagree. I think Mario World kicks ass.
Yeah.
Part of it's the nostalgia too. You know, Mario World came out with the Super Nintendo, and I'll never forget that year, that Christmas, and it was just magical. But it's not even just that. I just think it's a great game. But
it is. Yeah, it's amazing.
Super Castlevania 4 or Symphony of the Night.
Oh, I haven't played enough to have those two.
Really?
Yeah, Super Castlevania 4.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both great. Like, I'll preface every answer with that. Like, they're both cool games.
Yeah.
But Super Castlevania 4 is, I mean, all the run-based Castlevanias that you can just, like, go through in a single sit-down always have that extra priority to them. And that one in particular is, like, it allows a lot more freedom compared to, like, the other NES Castlevanias, where you can just kind of, like, go at it and be done with it.
Yeah, that game is awesome, man. Super Castlevania 4, and it's so long. You know, it's like there's so much content there. The 8-way direction width, the limp width. You know, the
weird sounds, like the entire soundscape.
Yeah, I was going to say the soundscape is one of the things that's making me say, like, I can't say I love Super Castlevania 4 because of how it sounds.
It's so distinctly weird, though, that, like, when it's being played, I'm like, oh, Super Castlevania 4 is happening.
Yeah.
Not because it's the best, but because
it's distinctive.
It's very distinctive.
I was going to say,
just like the graphic style. Like, why does everything look like that?
It's like very real looking. Yeah. I was going to say the same thing about Mario World with regards to the sound. Is like, I think Mario World has like maybe the most unique soundscape of like any game that I've ever played. Like that, like the sounds in that game are like so, like they're so distinctive and they're so unique, and they're also like only in like Mario World. You know, like it didn't expound upon it that much. I mean, that's just awesome.
As far as Castlevania goes, not to sound like we're always going to pick the retro answer, if I wanted to play one of the Metroidvania ones, I'd probably go with something like Ecclesia or one of the Game Boy ones that have like all the skills that you can equip.
Yeah.
Just because Symphony of the Night, I know exactly what I'm going to get, and that kind of like ruins everything. Like, I know the sunglasses are behind that hidden wall. I know I need to get the wolf form.
Right.
But one of the ones with like more abilities and more of like a stage run kind of style is usually a little better for repeat playthroughs.
And like the castle in Castlevania Symphony of the Night isn't very like
compelling.
It's not very well designed. Like you can't run from like it's not built to run in loops. It's not like, it doesn't make sense for you to like go from point A to point B. It's like where Super Metroid is kind of like I would say a masterpiece of design in that regard, like of the way it loops you back and kind of like how it guides you without actually guiding you. I think Symphony of the Night is much more just like you push against the walls and you push against the edges of everything until you find the place that gives, and then you go in that direction.
Well, I agree with you guys. Super Castlevania 4 is a top 5 Super NES title. I love it, and I get a lot of hate for that too. I think it's better than Symphony of the Night. And cool shout out to Order of Ecclesia. That game's awesome.
Yep.
Favorite?
Playing it actually.
You playing it right now?
Yeah.
Favorite
Like,
game soundtrack?
No, sorry, it's on my 3DS at home.
That's my interview rule.
Yeah.
Favorite game soundtrack?
Oh wow.
It's kind of fast.
I like Double Dragon Neon soundtrack. We worked on Double Dragon.
Answer,
so
yeah.
that's super narcissistic. But I really like that one. Yeah, Shovel
They
Knight.
really nailed it.
You could say Shovel Knight. That's fine.
That's not a good.
Yeah.
I want to say a Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Like I want to say Final Fantasy 4.
What?
Yep. Yeah. Dude. Yeah, that's right. The boss theme. Also, all of the themes in that entire game all work with each other. Like they like
Has a common thread.
yes, yeah, they all have the same like common melodies, and it's like extremely fucking awesome. Yeah,
I like sevens a lot.
yeah. I mean,
I like sixes.
Well, I'm gonna join in on the club. I could have said any Final Fantasy game, but 7, and I know it's unoriginal, but or 4, those were gonna be my picks. I love Final Fantasy 4, man. Something about that was.
that one's my favorite.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, because everybody's all all about 6, and I love 6 too. But I played 4 way before 6, and yeah, 4 is simpler. I know 6 sort of was the launch pad for a game like 7, a bigger, grandiose like theme and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I love the characters in 4, and I just love the playful element to it. And
It was concentrated too, compared to 6.
Everything-
6 was all over the place. Like, I'll admit, just from every standpoint.
Yeah, I never finished 6 as a kid.
You keep saying, you said your turning point is the world ruined.
Yeah, the world
Like
was
your
ruined.
party members gone, it's like, now do the adventure again.
It's like, fuck this. Like, why would I?
The same thing happened to me. The same thing happened to me when I played that game.
Yeah.
I started playing, and I know I picked it up like 10 years later.
That's exactly what I
That
did.
portion of the game is like a fraction of what the first one is. Like, you go through all that stuff and take care of it, and it's
Yeah.
over. It's like another 4 hours of gameplay.
Well, see, but that's what I liked about 4 though, is they pulled the same thing. There's 4 more crystals, but they're like underground crystals, and it's like, oh, your quest is twice as long as you thought it was going to be, but then instead of being twice as long as like a big long quest, it was still really super short and concise.
And instead of scattering your party member, they just constantly mess with your party the entire game.
Yeah. The party members don't even matter. They just go in and out all the time. What'd you say, Danny?
I said the same thing happened to me in Symphony of the Night.
Oh, with the upside down castle?
Yeah, it gets upside down. I'm like, I just played this. It can't be better upside down. And then, like, later, I picked it up again.
That's so
You're so
funny.
grown.
I played Symphony of the Night on PlayStation, and I was like, what is this? This looks like a Super Nintendo game. And I put it down, and I like played polygonal things. Yeah, that's it totally. Yeah, I
Validated Sony's entire strong policy.
it totally happened. I remember because I rented a PlayStation and I rented Symphony of the Night and some other game, and like there was an Alien, it was like Alien 3 or some shit.
Yeah.
And it was like, fuck Symphony of the Night, and I throw it out the window. And then it's like, let's check out Alien. And it's like, oh my god, they're so realistic. And it's like Doom, like, flat, like aliens coming at you. Yeah, or no, it was Alien Trilogy. Do you guys remember that? That was a super early.
yeah, PlayStation.
Yeah.
Well, I was kind of excited when you said Alien 3 at first, because I don't know anybody else that likes that game, but I actually find pleasure in Alien 3. Just the
Alien 3 on Super Nintendo, I think, is actually pretty dang cool.
Yeah, it's repetitive. I mean, it's got its mission that's similar in every level, but I was a huge fan of the movies, and I thought, besides the fact that Alien 3 only had one alien, this had like a shit ton of aliens.
Right.
It was a fun game. The game, this is the last question. The game that made you lose your temper as a child, even if we're not proud to admit it, that got you in a little bit of a white rage. Could be any NES game, for God's sakes.
Which one was I yelling angry at?
I got pretty heated. It was Bushido Blade for me when I was a kid, playing that with my friends and just like not understanding what was going on and dying constantly because he was just a little bit better at it than me. I get really competitive, so that's like the rage comes out for that, and like Smash Brothers too when I was younger.
Yeah, I was going to say something like fighting, or Punch Out. Like I remember raging at Punch Out. But I mean, that's it. Like, I feel like that's justified because it's BS. Punch Out is impossible.
The closest thing I can think of is Smash Brothers on the N64. I had a friend who, if anyone was fighting and he was the last person to be KO'd, right while his character was sailing off screen, he would quit and do no contest.
Oh, what a jerk!
If they didn't lose, didn't happen, and like the loss wasn't mine. Every round, just as the fatal blow was being done, we were all super mad at him because he's right. It didn't count at that point. The victory was followed.
That guy should not be invited over anymore.
I wasn't expecting those choices, I got to be honest with you. If I had to pick anything, I think the only thing I ever kind of lost my cool about was anything that took a considerable amount of time as a kid. And I don't think about it much, but we're spoiled by the era we live in of auto saves and things like that.
Yeah.
Whenever I pull out a retro system, I almost just kind of forget, like, oh yeah, man, I had to actually manually save this stuff. And I actually I was playing the original Dragon Warrior, I think, some months ago, and I just kind of totally forgot about the whole idea of saving. Like, oh, it'll autosave.
No.
I swear, that game is just grinding. That's all the game really is.
Yeah.
And I played it, I swear, all day. I had a day off, and I played about 10 hours, and I was like, oh, all right, that's a good stopping point. And I turned it off, and I instantly wanted to cry because I realized what I had done.
Did yourself a favor.
Oh, did myself a favor?
To about Dragon Warrior, like by playing it all day. That was
Yeah.
fun. That was
I
funny.
don't remember ever actually being angry at a game as a kid that was single player content. Like I don't recall ever being like.
Well, because eventually you just turn it off. Like, this is bullshit.
Because my time as a kid had virtually no value. So it's like you
Right.
do this thing for 10 hours. It's like okay, you should collect all these Donkey Kong coins. Like, sure.
It's less about the amount of time it would take and more about like the coin you couldn't find, right?
Right,
It's
yeah.
when you're that's a really good point. Like it was like, I died and I lost an hour. It's like who cares? You have to
As a kid, you
It's
don't
like,
know.
an hour of Nickelodeon shows. Is that what
Right.
you established?
like I've already seen both episodes of Hey Dude that are going to be playing, so I'm just going to go back and play more Dragon Warrior.
Hey, dude, that damn Indian Danny. I haven't thought about that show in a while. But, but there was those, it wasn't even just that. Back in the day, I remember playing Final Fantasy VII when that first came out, and it wasn't just the fact of, oh, yeah, of course I knew about saving and memory cards or whatever. I would just get lost. I would get lost in that story and lost in that game, and I'd get real cocky because I was just floating through the game. And then
Right.
you run across, I don't know, like that serpent in the marsh or one of those, and it just wipes you out. And then you realize I haven't saved all day.
Yeah. Final Fantasy VII was my first RPG, so that was like learning that there's a save point was really bizarre to me. But I think it was cool because at save points you could use tents and stuff like that, and so you kind of had to look to save points more than just thinking about your data.
I
So
think
that
I
was
had
good.
something.
What?
I think I had something where I was like legitimately mad at the game for a reason I couldn't understand, which was when we had a Super Nintendo and a multi-tap, so we played through me and my brother's Secret of Mana through the entire way, and it was the coolest game ever. It was the most rad in the world.
Yeah. No, I mean that is awesome.
RPG.
It's like, and it was the best thing ever. And now, and it's like my brain is cutting away to actually like what that is, and I'm like, like shudder.
Okay, wait, right, use Earth Slide. Okay, right. But okay, so we finished that game and we loved it. And here, whenever amount of time later, we heard about Secret of Evermore, and we had it. We had like a magazine with like all the coverage and the master. It's like, oh my god, this is like a new Secret of Mana game. It's made by Square Enix, I think, and it looks the same. Like the HUD is exactly the same.
Right.
There's like a dog and a kid sliding around and probably doing charge attacks. So we went and we like rented it and we set up the multi-tap and plugged it in. And we sat there for at least an hour pressing select on all the controllers for 1 and 2 to appear over both of the characters, because why wouldn't this game show up? That was like the crowning feature of Secret of Mana.
Right.
And that game is a single player only adventure.
Sure is.
So
So we didn't even play it for like more than 2 hours.
even when that game was announced, I was like it said in the blurb in Nintendo Power, it's like this is made by like Square in America, and I was like, nope.
Yeah, right.
Really quick, that was the last question, but speaking of Square in America, it made me think about Mystic Quest. You guys remember Final Fantasy Mystic Quest? That was actually the first Final Fantasy game I ever played. I kind of bypassed the NES one.
I actually like Mystic Quest.
So do I. If you played it today, I could see why people might give it like a scathing review, but being 4 years old or 5, 6 years old, whatever I was when I played it, it really did what it aimed to do and be an introductory RPG, very simple, and I still have very fond memories of it. I actually play it now and again, and I think Nobuo Uematsu not being included, that soundtrack kicks ass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, isn't that a composer that only did that game? Like that was and then like he left the industry forever, kind of.
I don't know, but it's so good. It is insanely good, and I listen to that soundtrack actually in my and it's kind of dorky, but I listen to it and I enjoy it. And
No, it's a pumping soundtrack. I remember the dungeon and town design in that game being like pretty cool. Actually, there were jump puzzles where you could only like jump tiles and tiles. I think it had were monsters placed in the game.
yeah,
So-
they weren't invisible.
Right. There were like things you had to avoid and think about. It was way better than the normal Final Fantasy. Like, here's a maze and monsters are going to attack you on the shoulder every 5 seconds. It was like layouts and puzzles and abilities and things like that. You needed the axe weapon so you could cut down trees, kind of a thing. It did a lot of cool things. Yeah, I had a pretty good time with that one too.
It held your hand and everything else, but like I said, it did what it aimed to do. And you said Square America, and it made me think of that. But anyway, I mean, you guys answer all those questions. Those are fun questions. I like finding out what you guys are like, just as gamers. I want to close it all out with just saying that I really do hope Shovel Knight is a game changer, and that it starts a positive trend that might see companies like Square and Capcom revisit these structures that made gamers love them so much. And for me, Square is like the biggest fall from grace. I really miss the way they made role playing games back in the day. And
Default. Yeah, have you played Bravely Default?
I didn't play Bravely Default. No, I know all about it. I didn't play it. Okay, well then slap me on the hand. I haven't played that yet.
Okay.
Is it good?
That's not like in-house Square or anything, but what Silicon or Matrix Studios, whatever that team is, what they did, they like approached the classic formula for RPGs and like touched it up in the right places, and it was actually pretty interesting to play through.
But
I just finished the demo and I thought it was way cool. And now I want to play the whole thing.
Well, there's so many games that get added to the old personal queue. I can't keep track of them day in, day out, but you guys have refreshed me on Bravely Default, and I'll try and get to it. But, for a lot of reasons, though, I think Shovel Knight is really an important game to the current industry. And because of all those things, I just want to thank you guys for slaving for it and giving me time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
If Shovel Knight could be a trendsetter, that'd be really impressive to me.
We would I would love to see. Yeah, if everyone ripped off Shovel Knight, it's like people really love that Shovel Knight has well thought out design. That's what we need to steal for Assassin's Creed. That would be the most amazing thing of it.
I thought that was going to be a more general comment. I don't know.
Just as an example.
Yeah,
it's
it's just a litany of great design or charming games, just letting them mark.
Right. It's so much control.
If anything, just for people to sort of realize that, hey, these games are still liked, and they are timeless. So
every time that I'm reading support emails or Twitter responses, just to see that people are really getting into a game like this is beyond amazing to see.
Yeah, I mean that's really one of the coolest parts about having the game come out at this point is just seeing the responses from people that haven't necessarily played this kind of game.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks guys again, and thanks for the time, and the best of luck to the further completion of Shovel Knight and what's to come, guys.
Well, thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you so much.